are you?
I am fantastic. Hey, Trigger Happy Fam. We are back with another episode of Trigger Day at the podcast. We are so excited for today's episode.
Yeah.
I am all about improving relationships and trying to figure them out because they're complicated and they're so confusing. And especially the romantic ones, which will be the focus of today. Not just, I mean, there's all kind of relationships that we have, but today we're going to focus on romantic relationships mostly, because there's just so much, especially I feel like within certain communities that work against us having successful relationships. I also feel like we don't have the tools to manage relationships successfully. We're not really taught how to be great partners, especially romantically. So it's like a lot of trial and error, which means a lot of heartbreak and breaking hearts, right? So I'm super excited today to have celebrity wellness expert, mind, body, soul connector, owner of Brace Life Studios, where we held our Evolve experience.
And it was amazing.
In June. And he was a wonderful collaborator with us. And I'm just so excited to finally have him on this podcast because when we met him, there was just like an instant connection. We just love the things that he had to say. He actually closed out our event with this wonderful affirmation meditation that everyone is still talking about. So please welcome Robert Brace.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you for having me on. Good to be here with you again. Good to be connected again.
Yes.
We're going to keep this connection going. I really do adore whenever we have and we bring men into the Trigger Happy Family space, it's such a breath of fresh air. And too many times it can be seen, whether it's intentional or not, where Black men and Black women are kind of pitted against each other to constantly be in this battle of the wills. And so for us, we love to bring, especially men of color and Black men on, just to have conversations where you're not talking at each other and you're not battling each other to see who will win or who can destroy the other person or, squish them down so much that they surrender. It's like, let's talk. Like, let's just have a conversation. Yes, we know that sometimes, communication, you can get caught in the crossfire or the noise. But for us, it's so important that we have conversations where we can actually hear the other person's point of view and grow from it. So super excited to be here today.
Awesome.
Yes. And we wanted to have this conversation with you specifically because one of the most common comments and a lot of the feedback we got from the Evolve Experience event was just how loved the woman felt and from you during your closing that you did for us. And I just, a lot of words were used like safety, like women felt safe. They felt loved, they felt warm. And those are just not the words that are typically used to describe, love between Black men and Black women, right? Especially. So that's why I was like, I feel like if we're going to talk about relationships, we have to talk about Robert, who is married, who is a father. Like he has all the credentials, you guys, and all the rights to be sitting here talking to us about this. But with everything that you do have and all the titles that you do have, Robert, outside of all the accolades, outside of all the things that you've accomplished, who would you say that you are?
Oh, without the titles. Well, first of all, thank you for all of that. That's very much appreciated. And hearing that we provide a safe and warm space is that's really fulfilling to the mission that we have. But who am I without titles? I am a soul living on this earth who wants to make my biggest contribution to uplift those around me, the world at large, and have fun while I'm doing it.
All right. I like that. Yes.
Especially to have fun, because people think that because you do deep work, it means you have to be so deep that nobody else can find you. And it's like, hey, you can have fun and also fulfill your purpose and also be kind and also like it is a thing.
Yeah, because deep requires energy, so we need to have some
Sometimes
fun.
you need to come to shore and get recharged with the sun and have a little fun. I'm with you on that.
Absolutely. Especially too, like, and I've never heard anyone say it, but that is so true. Depth requires energy because you have to breathe differently when you go into the deep. Listen, we are already. That is so true. I've never thought of it that way. I'm like, why am I always so tired? And it's like, because you always be doing some deep work, girl. Come to shore, get replenished.
That's right.
I love that.
Exactly. Just like you said, if you go deep, you got to hold your breath. You got to go all the way down. It requires a different kind of strength. So.
Yeah, it's more pressure too down there because it's so vast. So it's a lot more pressure. And so that willingness to have fun, to replenish yourself, to even play, it allows for something different to happen inside of you so that when you do come back up, you're able to then communicate prayerfully, communicate in ways that make sense. And hopping like right on in, especially since we're talking about communication, they say a lot of times that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, which usually means so much gets lost in like translation, where you say one thing, we hear another, we say one thing, you hear another. And then that's where, shots get fired and sometimes folks are wounded. So what are some tools that you would suggest that we incorporate to communicate more effectively? Like you've been married at this point over 25 years, correct?
Well, been married 22 years. Got a 19-year-old daughter, a 13-year-old daughter. I wouldn't say I'm a relationship expert. So, however, we've had a lot of great, my wife and I were in the ministry for 6 years. So we got a lot of relationship counseling ourselves, and we were able to counsel other couples. So that's where it comes from. But in terms of communication, I know that once we get in our own heads, it's easy to confirm whatever bias we already have in our own heads.
Absolutely.
I know. We interrupted at the best part, but hear me out.
Dating should not be this hard. Let's be honest. We've all said it at least once that the dating pool has pee in it.
It has to. After dozens of dates, too many failed relationships, engagements, marriages, and even a divorce, we decided it was crucial that we find ways to be better at attracting the partners that we desire. So we did just that, and we created the Dating Well AF course.
It's specifically designed to show women how to date with intention and in alignment with their desired type of lifestyle and experience. The 5-module crash course developed by certified coaches Alicia and Danny provides practical tools to date well and live even better.
So I want you to register now for lifetime access to the Dating Well AF course at datingwellaf.com. You will tap all the way in to learn how to identify those self-sabotaging behaviors, discover new ways to date intentionally, and to nurture that healthy love.
Remember, one of the most important life decisions you will ever make is who you decide to make your partner. Make the choice well and visit datingwellaf.com.
Now, back to the episode.
For me, especially as a young married, I think if I didn't understand something, then you was just crazy, because obviously the way that I think is the way that it should be, right? So I think that what I've learned is to listen through our own judgment. And what I mean is, like, we'll be sitting around and, maybe my wife will say, I've got nobody to help me, right? And I'm thinking, well, I'm here, and your mom just came over yesterday, and your friend just came over the day before. And so in my mind, I'm judging, right? I'm judging what she's just said, as opposed to, all right, what do you mean by that, right? And so, what she might mean is she's got no one to bear the burden of the emotions of the kids while I'm away, or it's something more specific. And so instead of just judging in my head, like listening through that judgment, or listening through, sometimes me feeling judged. Like if she says, I got no one to help me, I'm like, well, what am I doing here? I did A, B, C, D, and that's not what she needs, but I'm feeling judged of something she says. She has no idea that I'm feeling judged, right? So it's deciding to quiet down the voice in your own head and listen through your judgments, listen through your explanations in your own head, listen through all of that stuff, and stay curious, because that's when you really begin to learn to understand each other. Because what we always say is not what we sometimes mean. So.
Ooh. Yeah, that's for damn sure. Especially the part about you talking about when you get in your head and you tell yourself stories. Mm-hmm. That is personally probably one of my biggest obstacles. I'm a newlywed, and I feel like that's hard to get out of your head and to see someone else's point of view, especially once children get in the mix. There's so much energy and emotions to be dealing with on a regular basis. I think oftentimes women definitely feel neglected, especially emotionally. And sometimes you guys are more practical and more kind of surface and logical with it, and will say things like, man, I just feel overwhelmed. I feel like I don't have any help. And you're just like, well, I just did all these things, right? But a lot of the time, you said, it's like this emotional toll gets taken, whether it's from the children, whether it's from work, whether it's from other family members. And I know one of the things that I hear women, I don't want to say they're complaining about, but something that they would definitely like to see more of are men who are more emotionally available. So what are some ways that men can learn to be more emotionally available, and more so in long-term relationships, right? Because I think that men need to guard their heart too, right? And protect themselves, because there are women who don't have the best intentions. There are women who will manipulate them, use them, and things like that when they're too open. So in long-term safe spaces, marriages, long partnerships, what are some ways that men can learn to be more emotionally available without being considered, like the new word is, or the word that they're using now to describe men that are very emotionally available and expressive, is like a simp, right? Like if he's always like talking about his woman, if he's always complimenting her, like now all of a sudden that's a simp. That's like a weak man. That's a man who his woman has him wrapped around her fingers. So like, what are some ways that men can show up more emotionally without feeling like they're being weak?
Right. I think a few things. I think, first of all, that feeling of feeling like a simp can come a lot of times from feeling either manipulated or feeling, like you just have to keep doing and not receiving, right? So I think in a long-term relationship, hopefully you've gotten to a place where there's a mutual understanding and a mutual love and respect, so you don't feel that, right? But I do think from a man's perspective, I think there's two sides to the story. I think for me, from a man's perspective, it really is listening with curiosity. Because like I said before, if I'm judging you while you're explaining how you're feeling, right, my energy is spent judging you, as opposed to really being curious about why would she say she has no one to help her after I just did all of these things? Like, I know she's not crazy, right? So why would she say that now? And so ask you that question. Well, why would you say that? I mean, I'm not being defensive. I just did this, that, and the other, but you're still feeling this way. So maybe I'm misunderstanding, right?
So asking more questions for clarity, as opposed to maybe getting offended.
Absolutely. Asking more questions for clarity. And even if you're not offended, even if it just sounds ridiculous, like asking more questions there, because, I remember this time we had this whole argument, and it got heated very, very quickly. And, at the end of it, we were like, all right, let's break down this conversation that we just had. And so I was like, when I said this, what did you hear? And so she was like, I heard this. I'm like, no. That's entirely not what I was trying to say, right? And then when you said this, what did you mean? And she explained what she meant. I'm like, okay, I didn't hear it that way at all, right? And so it's about being willing to ask those kind of questions. And it sounds dumb, like what did you mean by that? And to the person hearing that, it's like, well, it's obvious what I meant, but no, it's not. So,
Right.
so being willing to go there, because if you go through that process and you're more curious about it, then you can be more emotionally available because you understand and you're not misinterpreting, feeling judged, thinking that's ridiculous, dismissing the emotion, right? Because you've done the work to go all the way there, right?
Yeah.
And I think on the flip side is, and this is kind of a little stereotypical, which I don't like to do, but it's things like, well, I guess it could be either partner. If someone says, how you doing? And the other person says, or someone says, what's up? And you're like, nothing, right? And you both know something's up, right? So that one person is like, you know, which nothing is it? You know what I mean? Is it nothing leave you alone? Is it nothing you better figure it out? Or, you know, we're really going to go at it like which nut? Because there's a whole lot of nothing out there that you got to figure out, right? So, no, I think it's being willing to not put your partner in that position, right? Because or the one, what's wrong? Well, if you can't figure it out, I don't think I need to tell you, right? You need to figure this out, right? So it's like, all right, I'm generally trying. I don't know. I don't have the tools for whatever this is, right? And now you're dismissing my effort. So that's going to shut me down. That's going to make me less available, right? Because when I'm trying, I'm getting a pushback, and I'm really genuinely trying. I don't understand what this is, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's being willing in those moments when you're really mad, or when it really hurts, or when you're really frustrated, to take a beat and ask more questions.
So I think that's also too applicable in newer relationships as well, because you can't get to 5 years unless you first get through year 1.
Yeah.
So I think too, we've got to, okay, if I know I want to get to 5 to 10 to 20 to a lifetime, if that's what you believe, and if that's what you want, implementing these in the beginning, because what it really sounds like you're saying, and I'm going to use what you just said. So what I'm hearing is you're going to have to lay your ego down so that you can remain curious and be willing to figure it out, even and especially when it does or may sound ridiculous to you, and also while you're judging. Is that, did I put it together right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because that's the work, right? And then the other thing that can happen is if you don't do that work, and just say it's a slight misunderstanding, right? And it's an annoyance, and it's just an annoyance, a slight misunderstanding, right? Then every time your partner does something like that, it's confirmation bias that, all right, she's doing this because she wants to annoy me, or because she wants to, ignore me, right?
Yep.
Or what's going on. But then every time it happens, 5 years down the road, then there's a huge blow up. You're always trying to do, and the other person is like, what are you talking about? It's because you've read it this way, haven't communicated it. And then over years, months or whatever, every time they've done that, that confirmation bias is just solidified in your mind that this is what they're doing. This is what kind of person they are. And they have no clue what's going on. Right.
Yeah. So it was a pebble and now it's a boulder.
Yep.
Okay. And see, this is why we have to have conversations, because that just became so clear to me. I get that. I can completely understand that one. I get it. I love this. I love it. For me too. Primarily because when it comes to relationships, like I love love. Like I am a romantic. There's something about love that is just so dope to me. I don't care how many times there have been disruptions in that loving a specific person. For me, I will always be a proponent of love. I will always be a proponent of marriage. And with that, it is really, really concerning because the divorce rates, I mean, they are through the roof. I mean, high. But then now also the marriage rates are on the decline, with many people believing that either A, marriage is a waste of time, B, being with one person for the rest of your life isn't natural or normal, and then C, feeling like it unfairly benefits women if there is to be a divorce. And I guess the bonus is that with the acceleration of social media, you have so many options, right? And so it can kind of give the false illusion, or maybe it is an actual, belief, or it's an actual reality, that it seems that people are willing to kind of bask in the better because they feel like if this one eventually breaks down or isn't going so well, I can just find somebody else because I got all these options. So they'll bask in the better, but then run from the worst, right? So what do you believe are some of the most misconceptions about marriage, and how and why it can be a good thing? Or if maybe you believe that the misconceptions are real, like this is a real thing.
You asked a lot there. That's a great question.
It was kind of thick.
That was deep. That was deep. I think first of all, and look, you got to understand, you're talking to someone who we dated and got married before you had 1,000 swipes, right? So that's, I don't know, that whole thing to me it's intense, right? And when people say, well, it's not natural. All right, here's the thing. Natural is just a concept, because is it natural that you get up and work 9 to 5 every single day for how many years and then, retire with X amount? Is that natural? Is it natural, the way we're stuck to our phones every single day? And natural is whatever you decide natural to be. So
that's so true. I'm so happy you say that. It's just like wiping your ass isn't natural. Like,
yeah,
it's like that idea of like, oh, it doesn't come naturally. It's like, oh my God, so much of our existence is about learning and adapting new skills. Like that's the only reason we're still here today is because our ancestors were like, oh, it's not natural, but I figure it out.
Right. So that whole argument, I think, is just, and look, it's about what you decide to commit to, right? Because people are committed to their careers, people are committed to their political views, people are committed to their social causes, so if you want something that's going to last and go deep, you're going to have to make some commitments to it.
Yeah.
The whole idea of, look, the wedding industry is a $70 billion a year industry. $20 billion a year. So you got
Billy with a B.
Billion with a B. People who are smarter than us sitting in rooms selling us a certain kind of dream so we can buy certain products, right?
Yes. And really quickly before you go on with that point, and don't forget it, but the costs of weddings since the pandemic have gone up 55%. So weddings used to cost they used to cost $20,000 to $30,000. They're up to $60,000 to $70,000 as the average cost of one day for 6 hours.
Crazy. And see, that's the thing. That's a marketing machine that's selling you a dream. That's selling you this kind of ideal that's not reality. And the question is, do you want a wedding or do you want a marriage? Right?
That's the one.
Because you can have a wedding and that's awesome, and the pictures are great and it looks great on Instagram and you can create a reality show around it. Awesome. But that ain't a marriage. You know what I mean? Those two things are different. Even the whole concept of wedding rings. It's like De Beers decided they had these cheap diamonds that they needed to offload. And so the whole, what's their tagline? I think it's diamonds are forever or something like that, right? That became a tagline. And now the diamond industry is huge. They're selling us a certain ideal. And if that's what we're trying to live up to, it's not what marriage is, right? To me, at least, marriage is a commitment and a partnership with someone who is your best friend and someone who you've made a decision to navigate this life with, right? And when it comes to that whole idea of what did you say? The better, the run for the better or something?
Yeah, you wanna bask in the better, but you run from the worse. Because in the marriage vows you have for better or for worse. Well, in some people's marriage vows you have for better or for worse.
Right.
And it's like people are willing to be there for the better. Everyone wants to be there when you're celebrating, when you're winning the award. They want to stand next to you, but they don't want to be there when you don't have money to figure out how to keep the lights on, or you are about to go through repossessions or foreclosures. Most people run from the worst because it's like, oh no, I did not sign up or agree to that.
Right. And that's it right there. I think, listen, when the reason I'm with my wife is because, we have a great friendship. I mean, look, she's beautiful. She used to be a model. So, you know what I'm saying?
You lucked out.
That helps. That helps.
So she's super smart. She runs a very successful business, right? But all of that wasn't, I mean, the business and all of that kind of stuff wasn't there when we first started dating, right? It was the fact that I felt that no matter what we go through in life, we can get through it with each other, right? There was that kind of friendship, love, camaraderie, right? And I think that, with this whole idea that there could be something better out there. And I think, look, if you've grown up swiping left, right, and seeing all of those options, it's been proven that makes you more depressed. It makes you make worse decisions, right? So the only way to get the depth in a relationship, which is what we really want. We want to feel completely loved, completely understood, protected, and someone who will be there with your highs and your lows, is to commit, is to shut the door, is to turn off the mental and spiritual swipe, right? Like once you make that commitment, that's it. And I think, and this is where I might sound old, that people aren't down for that these days. Because how can you continue to commit to the work and get to a place of depth without deciding that, aside from anything crazy, this is me and you, right? And think about it. They say we change every 7 years. Each person changes their personality, who they are, their identity every 7 years, right? So in 22 years of marriage, my wife has been married to 3 different men, right? So,
and I think, honestly, with the advent of social media and things moving so fast, I personally, and I have not done any studies, but I personally feel like that has now been accelerated to where we're changing and becoming a different person every 2 to 3 years. Because we have so much more information.
Right. Well, exactly. And so it's staying in communication through that. And then on the other side of it, I mean, how great is it if you have in your life at least one person who has promised and is completely dedicated to you through ups and downs, who does their best humanly possible to understand you, to protect you, emotionally, spiritually, physically, who is going to, not make you their life, but at the same time, do whatever they can, stay committed to make sure that you're good, right?
Yeah.
Emotionally, what does that do for you, right? Spiritually, what does that do for you? What does that do when you have, hundreds, thousands of Black couples committed in this way? What does that do to our communities, right? Yeah. So for me, it's the ROI is worth, the deep investment and commitment, because because once you get to a certain stage, it's like, yeah, there are options, but none of those comes close because of how deep we've gotten, how far we've come.
Yeah, I tell my husband all the time that it's very important to me for us to, because I wouldn't say I grew up swiping, but I came of age in dating and having more serious relationships in that age of social media. And I told him, for this to be sustainable for me long term, it's very important that we create something that I can't get somewhere else. And that is the depth, that is the experiences. There's like, I need that thing. I need us to continue to create that thing that we can't duplicate. And that is through really going through life together, going through things together, communicating, and having those experiences that you just can't have in the same way with someone else. It's like creating magic, or like when you create, like for anyone who cooks, when you like, sometimes you just create, like, say you're making like a stew or a soup and there's like a bunch of stuff in it. And then like you try to make it again and it's just not the same. Like you did all the same things, you put all the same ingredients, you did the same steps, but something was just different. And I was like, that's what we always have to try to curate between each other, that little thing that kind of sets us apart. But I think sometimes it's difficult for me when it comes to misconceptions around marriages. I felt like once I decided I would get married, and once I found my partner, and once we decided to make this commitment, that I would just always feel in love and loved all the time. That was like, that's what my brain said. My brain was like, oh,
Right.
like you're like you find your person and that's your soulmate. And once you find them, like you're just in this space with them all the time of like feeling goo goo gaga and like butterflies. And you just, I don't know why I thought that, but I did. I've learned very quickly that that's not the case. And it's been a very big adjustment for me to understand that, okay, this is a decision we have to make every single day. Like it's not as emotion based as it is like logically making a decision like, okay, I'm going to get up and try to love you a little better today and be better for you, because I don't feel like it. I don't. Like sometimes I don't feel like it. You're getting on my nerves.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm exhausted. You're not understanding me. I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard, but I have to still make a decision. And I don't think that I was as prepared for that, you know, in the way that I think more people should be prepared to go into marriage. Like there's just this idea that the feelings and the emotions are always at this high, and that ain't true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that thing that we've been sold. It's impossible to sustain that. You know what I mean?
It's not a rom-com. Like your life is not a rom-com.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see what happens after they get together in the rom-com, right?
Exactly. Because it always ends when they get together. Right. So I think that I think that is the tough part, but that's also the beauty of the long-term relationship, is that it's not just about those highs and lows, you know what I mean? Or those highs, so to speak. And I think that, it's about what they've sold us. And we've got to understand that working through those things is what we really do want. It's not what we feel like in the moment. And I know, you know, I'm from a Christian background, you know, not to say that that's the only, you know, thing to subscribe to, but one of the scriptures that really helps me is when it describes what love, it says love never fails. All right. I think most of us can agree, if we love, no matter what background you're from, that's a good thing. Right. And then it goes on and explains what love is. Love is patient, right? Love is kind. You know, it's not easily angered. It goes on. Love seeks the best in others. Love always protects. So if I look at those things, those are very practical things. So I'm like, all right, am I being patient? Am I thinking of just myself right now? Right. And if I go through that list, it takes the emotion out of it, but it helps me understand that this is what love is and this is what I'm committing to. Now, there are other aspects of love for sure, but it takes out that goo goo gaga, whatever. And for sure, look, marriage is filled with all of those goo goo gaga moments, right? I mean, it would be miserable without them. But in order to maintain and keep that growing and taking it higher and making it better, I think it's the disciplines like resistance training, right? You lift weight because it's hard to lift, but after a while you get stronger. So
well, I like that. I like that idea and that concept, because I think sometimes we feel like, especially now, there's a lot of messaging to men that like it's better to have a bunch of different women, and that's sexy, and that makes you a man, and that's masculine, and that, you know, there's like this idea that, you know, it shows what you're really capable of based on how many women you can run through and have access to. But how do you feel like loving one woman has kind of empowered you to be a better human? Because there's so much out there that promotes the exact opposite, that's boring, that's whack, that's not real. All she's gonna do is nag you and get on your nerves and try to tell you what to do, right? But I think that it sounds like there's been such an evolution because you have chosen to love one woman and to make it work with her.
I mean, look, this may sound judgmental on my part, but it's easy to run through X amount of partners, right? That's the easy option. That's not difficult.
Yes,
right? I can swipe. I mean, really, that proves you're something. that you can run through all of these, different partners and you the man now. No, most guys, I better watch what I say. Most guys can do that at any time, right? You know what I mean? You don't have to have a 6-figure, 7-figure income and drive a Maserati to do that,
nope.
right? So to me,
and if you're broke, you do it even more because you've got time.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So for me, I just think that's just easy to fall for, right? Loving one woman has definitely made me better. One, because I've learned so much. The commitment makes you learn, and not just in the relationship, but patience in business, patience with other people, patience with my other relationships, right? She has taught me so much about not just in our relationship, but listening beyond what my first impression is, right? She's taught me so much about asking for help. And when I perceive a certain threat, I don't always have to be ready to fight, right? So she's taught me about how to think long-term about certain things, because I'm very much like now, right? When you have, I have three brothers, right? So I'm the oldest of them. So I grew up around that masculine energy, and now I have a wife and 2 daughters. So
estrogen.
What is happening here, right? So so she's helped me navigate that, and even just on a business level, I started my personal training business. She was going to school, so supporting her. Long story short, she got through school, got her credentials. I made an investment into her business. Her business blew up, and she's got a crazy work ethic. And so from that, as her business blew up, she turned around and invested in the gym that you guys came to, right? So it's kind of like I learn from her work ethic. We support each other in life. We support each other in business, right? And so I just, the commitment allows me to be, I think, a deeper person with more understanding, more patience, more appreciation, not just for my relationship, for other people around me, to remain curious, because I have to remain curious with my wife, right? So curious in business, curious in how I go about things. So there's so much, but you don't get there without the commitment and the time and the work and the depth. So
yeah, for sure. I love that too, because it really does teach you patience in your other relationships, because you have to be, if you want to sustain this thing. And I think too, if it's a healthy relationship, it teaches you how to fight. And what I mean by that is if you in your relationships are always going below the belt, if you're always looking for ways to try and one up the person, or always looking to try and win versus trying to come to a resolution that works for both parties, that permeates through what you do professionally as well. So if you're in a healthier relationship or a healthy marriage, and you've learned how to fight or disagree in healthier ways, that is so beneficial for every other aspect of your life, that the ROI on it, as you were saying, is boundless. But the one thing though, I really do believe, and this is for me, like when I was married, and honestly, even in my relationships that I've had since my marriage, is there is this huge misconception that men do not have like deep, complex emotions. And the one thing I have learned is that is a lie.
A whole lie. A whole lie.
Whole lie. However, for women, especially if you haven't had an older woman or a more experienced or mature man or woman to kind of tell you like, hey, sis, don't jump into this relationship thinking he don't have the as deep or even deeper emotions that you do. So because we don't have those tools, we don't know how to handle it when we're presented with having to manage the complexities and emotions that men have. And so it can lead us to being super insensitive, a little disrespectful sometimes, and even dismissive, because it's like, what are you talking about? So how can we, because we are all about figuring out, okay, what are our triggers and how can we learn from them? How can we better assist men and them, like, to understand and navigate those feelings and the pressure that comes with just being a man?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's so many levels to it, right? It's I think the first thing that you said is society has a certain ideal of what a man should be, and
Mhm.
been told, you know, a lot of ideas of how men should act. And so a lot of times, you know, sometimes we are that, sometimes we try to live up to that, right? And sometimes it comes from a place of insecurity. Um, so I think it's understanding those pressures, and again, it's asking a lot of questions, because, you know, we are, for the most part, it's better now, but raised to not be emotional, to get stuff done, and so even when we're asked, how does that make you feel? We might not know, you know, or we might push away the conversation. And so maybe the question is, well, why? You don't have to tell me how you feel about that, but why is this making you uncomfortable? And maybe just start at why they're uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And let them express that in a safe way. And I think it goes back to the being curious, asking a lot of questions, and noticing. I think that's that's one thing my wife is good at. She notices, right? Like, pay attention to, why did he have a big reaction to that? You know what I mean? Why is he wanting to shut that down real quick, right? And then if that happens over and over again, then there's probably a thread there that you want to pull, or you
Yeah.
want to ask about. Because we do have, I mean, I know for me, look, I didn't meet my father until I was 40 years old, right? Single mother household, oldest brother. So I had an outsized sense of responsibility, to take care of my brothers, to take care of my mother. A lot of, I think, why I do what I do with Black women's health comes from, you know, that protective mechanism that happened when I was young, right? So there are all of these things that are laced to me. I went to a private school. There was only 2 Black kids in every year, and I was the smallest, shortest Black kid, right? So, you know, I grew up, I'm now over 6 foot, right? But I grew up always having a fight, right? So I have this kind of dual side to me. I'm a ballet dancer, but then there's this other side that once he's triggered, he's, you know, so it's like, it's taken the time to really understand each other, right? And understand that men are oftentimes telling themselves a certain story that may not be true, and may not be true now that they're with you, right? So I think that's you having me go through therapy right here, because because that's true. Like, certain stories I told myself, but then they were no longer true after I was in a relationship with my wife. But it took me a while to realize that I didn't need to hold on to those narratives anymore.
Yeah. And I think something else that I'm learning, because I haven't learned it, I'm in 101, that I need to, and I think most women can relate to this, especially not knowing that men are so emotional. And that because they don't get the tools, because they're just supposed to like stuff down their emotions and act like nothing's wrong all the time.
Right.
They don't have the tools, then we don't have the tools. And then we're all just trying to like scramble to figure it out, because now we're in so deep and it's like, okay, like I don't know what to do here. And I feel like I'm drowning. I think something that I've learned to try to adapt is, yes, that curiosity, but also just like a lot of compassion. Like I've been learning to find the compassion for my husband, even when I don't understand, or even when I feel irritated by his emotions, because sometimes I feel like they shouldn't be there. Because that's literally how women feel. Like the way that men behave, like nothing's wrong. We're like, well, then nothing's wrong. And then if something's wrong with you, why you acting like what's wrong with you? Like, you know, like why are you acting so soft, or why are you so emotional about this? And we have to realize that men have always been emotional. What do you think these wars are about? What violence is about? When someone walks up to a pool and shoots it up, he's being emotional. That's an emotion.
Right. That's such a good insight.
Like, I don't know why that never computed until I got married, but I was just like, oh my God, the state of the world as it is right now is because men are so emotional.
Right.
They will start, like, I was talking to a girlfriend, she was like, yeah, and we were like talking, and she was like, men have started entire wars over women, like the story of Helen of Troy. That's emotion. Those were emotional men ready to destroy Earth because they couldn't get what they wanted, So yes. I realized how powerful those emotions can be and how much they just need to be a little more regulated. And there just needs to be some kind of education and more information to help men and to help us aid men, because I think we do get a better, not all of us, but I think because women are allowed to be emotional and are expected to be emotional, we've been forced to have to manage our emotions in healthier ways. And I think we can really help each other in community like that.
Yeah, you're hitting on two really important things, and I want to get them out before I forget them, right? Not that it's ever anybody's responsibility to fix the other person, but if a man does show you that weak side, because I do have, my wife has friends like, why is he being so emotional all of a sudden, or whatever, right? That's gold. If you see that, and if he shows you weakness, and if he shows you that kind of weak emotion, and you're like, what's happening here? You gotta let that out, because that's golden.
And I like to get quiet and just sit there. I try not to move or make any sudden movements because I know the well will dry up.
That's right. You gotta
get real quiet and just let him flow and talk and express and cry or whatever else.
Yeah, that's golden. And then the other thing is, to your point about wars and violence and all that stuff, if we express anger a lot of times, or you're disrespecting me a lot of times, and it comes out as anger, it's because we're hurt.
Yeah.
Right.
Real hurt, big hurt.
It's like it's that hurt here, and we don't want to show weakness because we've been conditioned not to. And evolutionary, there's a whole other thing there. But anger and disrespect and that kind of response sometimes is because it's hurt or insecurity, or you've touched a nerve, right? And that's a protective mechanism. So not that it's an excuse for bad behavior, but it's just kind of understanding that might be where it's coming from.
And being a safe place to land for your partner as a woman, because sometimes we see those emotions and we weaponize them, or we use them to manipulate, or we use them to be even more hurtful. It's like, oh, now I know that that's a soft spot. Boop, boop, boop. Right. So, being safe for them too. Like we're oftentimes looking for safety and security in men, especially on a material plane. But I think that emotionally, men are often looking for a safe place to land and a secure space to kind of be vulnerable and be these people that they really are and want to be and have always wanted to be. But it's just not really safe most times. And it's going to come out in anger. It's going to come out in violence. It's going to come out in shutting down if he's not a violent person. There's just so much more to men. And I think that the narratives that have been pushed, especially in the last 10 years, with all the movements and all the things that make men seem so dangerous, it furthers that narrative and that divide between us, that like, you're over here and you're just like a person that is trying to hurt me physically. And then men just believe that women are over here trying to take their money and hurt them emotionally.
And financially.
So it's like, we have to have these conversations. We have to continue to have dialogue so that we can try to, at least, we may never fully understand each other, but at least there can be like a respect for who we are as women and men, and what that looks like, and how we can better support each other as we're all trying to figure life out, parenting out, marriage, business, all the things. I just love this conversation. I'm so grateful for it, because I know that the more we talk through it, the more we communicate, is the better we'll be. And once we can kind of what's the word? Like put together and rehabilitate the Black family, and not just the Black family, families in general, because I think families in general are under attack. But when you can do that, that pillar in the community and putting that at the essence and in the middle and at like the forefront of society, that brings us back to such a wonderful time where we get better humans out of it. We raise better children. We have better experiences in life because we're really focused on what matters. And we can't do that if we don't talk.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Listen, this conversation was so good. Robert, where can we stay connected? Where can folks actually go to Brace Life Studio? If you have not been, trust me, y'all need to go. But we want to know all the deets. Where do we go?
Instagram at Robert Brace is the easiest place to find me. Instagram at Robert Brace. And if you want to find out about our programs and how we transform people, mind, body, and soul, you go to bracelifestudios.com. That is bracelifestudios.com.
Absolutely.
It is always a pleasure, my friends, hanging out with you too.
Yes, thank you so much. And you can stay connected with me at the Danny Bordeaux. Bordeaux is BOURDEAU. You can stay connected with us at Triggered AFPC on Instagram. You can go to triggeredafpodcast.com. You can go to triggeredafevents.com to stay tuned for the latest and greatest and when we will be coming to a city near you.
Yes, and you can stay connected with me everywhere at Alicia Reese. And y'all, I promise you want to make sure you go to triggeredafevents.com. Robert will be with us at our next event. You do not want to miss it. It is going to be in a beautiful location. Trust me, y'all want to be there. And you got to stay tuned. So go ahead on over there. Go ahead, sign up so you can be the first to know. All right, we will see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.